Hi everyone. We're kind of doing a second half to mammals and mammal habitats. All right, so maybe it'll be a little easier to fill out the page that you were given. But let's talk about mammals. And special animals are called mammals. And mammals give birth to their live young. Okay, so they don't come in eggs. They also have hair or fur. Mammals' mothers nurse their young. Mammals are also warm-blooded. And warm-blooded, which I'm sure you probably already know, means that our blood temperature inside of us does not change. So if we go outside and it's cold, we're very cold. And when it's hot, we're hot. And so our blood temperature does not change. If you're cold-blooded, your temperature changes with the weather. So if you notice that when it's super duper cold, you don't see as many bugs and ants. Ants are always my problem because it is so cold that they can't move. They don't have the warmth because their blood is now cold. So you don't see a lot of them. But once it gets hot, man, those flies are everywhere. So bugs and insects are cold-blooded. So their body temperature does change. Okay. Also, animals or mammals, have a backbone. Can you feel your backbone in your very back? They have a backbone, okay? And they also breathe with lungs. So we have lungs. Wait a minute. We have lungs. We have a backbone. We have hair. We have, 4 limbs. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sorry, you can't see my limbs down here. And we give birth to our live young. You guys, like I said, you guys didn't come out of an egg, right? And we're warm-blooded. Oh, you know what that makes us? That makes us mammals. Isn't that funny? So we're mammals also, okay? So let's see what else about about mammals, okay? Let's listen to this about mammals.
Mammals. Mammals are a type of animal. They can be found all over the place, underwater, on land, even in the air. All mammals have backbones, are warm-blooded, and have fur or hair. Here are some examples of mammals. Tiger, whale, lion, monkey, deer, rabbit, elephant, porcupine, sea lion, and humans. Thanks for watching.
So doesn't that sound like us? You know, we have hair, okay? And like I said, we also have 2 arms and 2 legs, and we breathe with lungs. And you know what, though? I bet you were pretty surprised about dolphins and about whales. Isn't that interesting about whales? Whales have lungs. They do have hair. They have like little whiskers around their faces. When they give birth to their babies live and give them milk. So isn't that something that even though the whales live in the ocean, they're also mammals because they have lungs. Oh, that was pretty interesting. Yep, people are mammals too. Okay, so here, let's talk about where mammals live. And let's talk about the rainforest. I love the rainforest. So much fun to learn about. There's that lady again.
It's a drizzly, rainy day outside, so we thought we'd pull out a few of our books and explore some cool, colorful places where wet weather is pretty much the only weather there is. I'm talking about rainforests. You can probably tell from the name that rainforests have a whole lot of two things: trees and rain. And sure enough, rainforests get more rain than any other place on Earth. In some areas of the rainforest, it rains every day, and people often think that rainforests all look like this: warm and steamy, with animals like colorful birds and plants like bananas and mango trees. And there are lots of rainforests like that. But a rainforest can also look like this: home to animals that are adapted to cooler weather, like bears and elk. Both of these places are rainforests, but they're found in different parts of the world. The warm rainforests are found here, close to the imaginary line that runs around the middle of the Earth. This part of the world is called the tropics. It gets lots of sun, which is why the temperature is really warm almost all of the time. And there are a lot of different kinds of plants and animals that live in these warm rainforests. So many, in fact, that scientists talk about the rainforest as having layers that change as you go from the top to the bottom. And different animals and plants live in each layer. For example, at the top layers of the rainforest in the tropics, all you can see is the very tippy tops of the tallest trees. There's lots of sunlight up there that the trees use to grow, so these tall trees have lots of leaves. And these big leafy trees make lots of shade. They block some of the sunlight from getting to the lower layers, kind of like a big green umbrella. And all of the leaves and fruit in the top layers means that there's plenty of food for animals to eat. So many different kinds of animals live up here, like insects, parrots, bats, monkeys, and sloths. Some of these animals never even go down to the ground at all. They don't need to. Everything they need is at the top of the rainforest. Now, the lower layers don't get as much sunlight as the top, but they're still home to plenty of living things, like snakes, lizards, and even big cats, like tigers and jaguars. And just like the animals at the top of the rainforest, animals down below are perfectly suited to the place where they live. The big cats, for example, have patterns on their coats that help them blend in with the rainforest. The jaguar has spots, and the tiger, as you all know, has stripes. And these patterns help the animals hide amongst the shadows of the trees. Okay, but what about the cooler rainforests? They're found here, much farther away from the tropics. These rainforests are cooler because they don't get as much sun as the warmer ones. They also have layers, but the plants and animals that live there are pretty different. The top layer of cooler rainforests, for example, is made of conifers. Those are the kinds of trees that usually have cones, like pines and redwood trees. And these kinds of trees have needles too, like some other kinds of evergreens. These needles help the trees save energy during the cold winters. And it's not only the plants that are different here. Animals that live in these rainforests also have to be able to live in cooler temperatures. So many of the creatures that live in the lower layers of these rainforests have coats that help keep them warm. For example, some tigers live in these cool rainforests, and they also have striped coats that help them blend into the shadows. But their fur is nice and thick, so it keeps them warm. And other furry mammals live in these cold forests, like brown bears, black bears, and elk. Quite different from the macaws and monkeys that live in the warmer forests. Wow, that was quite an imaginary tour. We went all over the world in just a few minutes. But now I want to find out even more about the amazing rainforests around our world. Come on, Squeaks, let's head to the library. Thanks for joining us on SciShow Kids. Do you have a question about something or some place in the world that you'd like to learn more about? If so, ask a grown-up to help you. Leave a comment down below, or send us an email to kids@scishow.com. Thanks, and we'll see you next time here at the fort.
Isn't that cool? I think it is so neat about the rainforest. If you could look up the rainforest, especially in the jungles, because a certain time of year, it will rain so much that water comes all the way up and you can't even walk on the ground because it is so far up. And all the animals will start living in the trees. So it is really interesting. Isn't that the neatest stuff that God does? To have all these different places of where we can live and where other animals and animals we've never seen. I bet if we go to the rainforest, I don't think I've seen half of the things that are at the rainforest, even though you can go to the zoo and go see them. Okay, so I like this song, On Top of Old Smoky. which I don't know if you've ever sung that song, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to sing the song for you. I know, especially my class, they want to hear me sing terrible. But let's read it though. Can you read it with me? I bet you can because you know all these words. All right, so our first word is on. So let's read it together. It says, on top of a mountain or under the sea, there are so many places where creatures may be. Alone in a desert, or grouped on a farm, or tucked in a tree trunk, away from all harm. On bright sunny grasslands, or in a dark cave, in jungles and forests, where all must be brave. On ice in the Arctic, or holed underground, there are so many places where creatures are found. Again, I'm sorry, all the animals and all their different habitats, God really has such an imagination. And we talked about this with Noah's Ark. Think of all the crazy looking animals, and God created them. And then not only did he create them, then he had to create a really cool home for them also. So we talked about the rainforest. Why don't we talk about the desert and see what animals live in the desert? And if you haven't done that paper yet on the different habitats, maybe this will help you. There we go.
I love living in a place where I get to enjoy rainy weather because I love the smell of rain, and Squeaks likes jumping in the puddles. But there are some places where there's almost never any rain. They're called deserts and are the driest places on Earth. In deserts, there's so little rain that sometimes you have to wait a whole year just for one rainstorm. So things that live in the desert, like plants and animals and even people, need special ways to survive when there's so little water. They also need special ways to deal with the temperature in deserts because deserts aren't just very dry, they can also be very hot or very cold. Hot deserts are the kind of deserts you might have heard about before. They're incredibly hot, just as hot as the middle of the summer all year, though they can also get pretty chilly at night. Hot deserts don't have a lot of big leafy plants that can help provide shade during the day or anything to hold in the heat at night, like a blanket. But not all deserts are hot. There are actually cold deserts too. During the summer, cold deserts aren't too cold, but when it gets to be winter, they're freezing. When you think of the cold, you might think of snow, but it hardly ever snows in cold deserts, even though it's so cold. There might only be a tiny bit of snow or rain all year. Whether their desert is hot or cold, all the plants and animals that live in deserts have to be really well prepared to live in such an extreme place. One of the main things that's hard about life in the desert is that there's so little water. So, Squeaks, what do you think plants or animals can do to make sure they have enough water? That's right. Some of them have special ways to hold on to whatever water they can find, like a cactus. Cactuses are plants that live in deserts, and they have thick stems where they can store water for a long time. It's almost like they have a water bottle built into their body. So even though it doesn't rain very much, whenever it does rain, a cactus will soak up lots of water and save it so it has water until the next time it rains. But that's not the only way to get water when it hardly ever rains. Squeaks, do you know what kind of animal this is? You're almost right. It does look a lot like a bunny rabbit, but this is actually a different kind of animal called a jackrabbit. Jackrabbits live in hot deserts in the United States and Mexico, and they mainly get their water from the plants they eat. They also do something kind of funny to make sure they get as much water as they can. They eat their poop. This way, they can get any water that might have been left in it. The other thing that's really hard about living in a hot desert is that it's so hot. That's why jackrabbits have those huge ears. They're big so the jackrabbit can cool off really quickly. Also, jackrabbits don't do much during the day when it's the hottest. They sleep instead. They're mainly active early in the morning and in the evening when the sun isn't as high in the sky and it's a little cooler. They're also active at night. But what about animals that can choose to live wherever they want, like humans? Well, people have lived in deserts for an incredibly long time, and we've come up with all kinds of ways to survive there. But some humans humans live in the desert using some of the same tricks as other animals that live there. People who live in deserts can choose to wear special loose clothes that allows the breeze to cool them off. These clothes work a lot like a jackrabbit's ears, letting people catch a breeze and cool off quickly. People also have to avoid the intense heat of the hot desert sun. You could try bringing an air conditioner with you wherever you go, but some people use another way to stay cool. They only go out when the sun is low. Just like many desert animals, some people will wake up early when the sun is just rising and get things done in the morning. Then, during the hottest part of the day, they'll rest in the shade. And then, once the sun is setting, the air gets cooler and everyone can go outside again without getting too hot. Squeaks, do you remember which animal also does this? That's right. Jackrabbits are active in the mornings and evenings too. And there are lots of other desert animals that live this way too, like coyotes, birds, and even porcupines. Animals that are most active at sunrise and sunset are called crepuscular. And it turns out that being crepuscular is a pretty good lifestyle for people in the desert too. There are so many interesting ways to live, even in a place as dry as a desert. No matter how they choose to do it, the people, other animals, and plants that live in deserts have to be pretty tough. Thanks for joining us on SciShow Kids. If you want to keep learning and having fun with me and Squeaks, be sure to click the red subscribe button. Thanks, and we'll see you next time here at the fort.
You know, I was thinking how they were talking about people living in the desert and how they have clothes that are not really tight on them. Think about the stories of Moses and during Jesus's time in the Old Testament. What did they wear? They didn't wear pants. They kind of wore these long tight, I want to say a dress, long tight gowns with some kind of a loose jacket on. And they lived in the desert. And so that's probably why that kind of kept them cool, because they didn't have any tight-fitting clothes on. And that's probably why they wore those. Probably was also easier to make than making pants. So anyway, so I thought that was pretty interesting about the different places and how they live in their habitat. With the camels, you know, the camel drinks a lot. The camel can drink so much that he could go for days without water. That's pretty neat, especially during the Bible times when we hear about the camels and Moses and Abraham and their camels. They didn't have to find water for a long period of time. So that was kind of a cool thing to do, isn't it? Pretty neat. So, what we could do, there are more stories. Here's a good story also. But what I think I'll do is I am going to put it on another YouTube channel, all right, for you. Now, I will bet you that this is an ARP story, and when I go off and I'll come back on, then I will find out this is an ARP story, and you can find out about woodland animals, all right? We've talked about the deserts, okay, and then the rainforest, which is really, really neat. So, and wouldn't it be boring if we all lived in the same place and all lived different ways? You know, what if the whole world was like here in Riverside, where it's hot during the summer and it's kind of cold right now, but it was all the same? Well, then we wouldn't have the mountains to go skiing or the beach to go play in the water, and you know me, and going to the beach. It would all be the same. God didn't want that. God loves all different kinds of things that he did. And that's why he created the world so different. So I want you to think about that. So anyway, I am going to see you later. I'm going to put this on YouTube so you can see about mammals and their habitats. And I'll put this back on later. Okay? Bye.